welcome to the RCO's A to Z of the organ and the letter Q for quiet. When I was a student at Durham in the 90s, I remember being at a service at the cathedral in which the hymn "Rejoice the Lord is King" was sung. The organist treated us to increasingly dazzling organ interjections before the last line of each verse. Each repetition outdid the last until we reached the final verse. What would he do this time? How would he top it off? In the last iteration, he left it out completely and gave us just 2 beats of complete silence. And it was an astonishing moment in that awesome space. This is just one example that sprang to mind when I was thinking about the impact of silence on music. And as I did some more research for this video, I realised that an historic aesthetic exists in which composers aim to give meaning to silence. The Japanese word ma relates to all aspects of life and means gap, space, or pause. It's described as a consciousness of a sense of place or awareness of negative space. This empty space is full of possibilities, a promise to be fulfilled, and we're all finely tuned to the nuances of these silences, these spaces. Think of the expectation before a performance, or a pause in a conversation, how laden with meaning it can be, and how important timing is in comedy. In Western art, space or silence has been treated as substance by Cézanne, Giacometti, Mallarmé, and by composers throughout the ages. Claude Debussy echoed the concept of ma when he said, "The music is not in the notes, but in the silence between them." And the structural use of silence can be found across much of his music, from the prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun to the Submerged Cathedral. The inheritor of this aesthetic in the French organ world was, of course, Olivier Messiaen. Messiaen was a master at depicting both time and timelessness, that sense of stasis, and silence was both a musical tool and a reality of his Catholic faith. Works such as the Quartet for the End of Time and in the organ repertoire, Jesus Accepts His Suffering, are defined as much by the musical language as the silences that envelop them. One of the most notorious works of silence has to be John Cage's 4 minutes 33, premiered in 1952. But he wasn't the first composer to focus on the process of listening. In the prologue to Monteverdi's opera Orfeo, the allegorical character La Musica, the spirit of music, addresses the audience after the famous opening instrumental toccata. She declares that she can, through sound alone, calm every troubled heart. She silences the birds in the trees, the waves on the riverbank, and every little breeze. And in powerful word setting, Monteverdi brings the music of the opera to a complete standstill, leaving the audience in a profound silence. What does all of this mean for musicians? Well, as organists, our art is inextricably linked to the buildings in which we perform. When playing in buildings with complex acoustics, the speed at which we present a work and the length of time we give to rests and other articulations is often the difference between musical poise and incoherence. The roots of this component of performance can be found in the 14th century and the ceremonial pause in the middle of each verse of a psalm. This was defined as being expansive enough to allow a calm exhalation and inhalation of breath, and has also been called an architectural pause, the length of which depended on the acoustics of the building. Silences are also threads which connect sections and movements of a work into a satisfying whole. And there are technical challenges associated with these silences because they expose the quality of our attacks and releases. Thus, framing silences, those which come before and after the work and between movements, and internal silences or pauses demand scrupulous attention from performers. Franck's Grande Pièce Symphonique is just such a work. This 20-minute piece is full of pauses and extended rests, all of which can bring the music to a halt in both good and bad ways. If we're not careful, the expanding structure of the overall work is lost and the performance can sound fragmented. Similarly, the improvisatory nature of the music by North German Baroque composers such as Bruns and Buxtehude requires bravery and deliberation in equal measure. In this fantastic style, Ton Koopman likens the organist to an actor who's controlling the entire theatre with the audience hanging on every word. The changes of tempo, colour and mood are all divided by sudden pauses or unexpected silences, and Koopman encourages us to take the risk to be dissident, to astonish with virtuosity, to embrace the silence, and to wait until the echo of the church has died away. To conclude, silence or quiet is not something to try and cover up in a performance in case you lose the attention of your listener. It's often where the equilibrium, the coherence, and the design of a work can be found. Far from losing the attention of your listeners, you can draw them more fully into your performance, the sound world of the composer, and the solution for the space in which you're playing. Thank you very much for joining me, and look out for the next video in the series, The Letter R.